Okay, this video is a little more complex than some of my other talks. Um, it's about psychoanalysis as a metaphor to describe inner states in narcissism, Asperger's, and other conditions, and why psychoanalysis as a metaphor is insufficient. Okay, and I have had to write out the text for this video because I'm not able to hold ideas long enough in my mind to speak about them cogently. This has always been a problem for me, whether due to anxiety or Asperger's or whatever. I have to write my ideas down while I'm on a run, so to speak, and continually remind myself, or my thread of thought will just be lost or run amok. Okay, so I don't want to muddle around in this because I want these ideas to be quite clear. So, theories such as psychoanalysis and analytical psychology are essentially metaphors for inner psychic states. For example, if I'm going to talk about narcissism, I can explain my mental dynamics according to a false self, which is built up under certain conditions and interactions from childhood. This is a very interesting and appealing idea, since the metaphors provided by psychoanalysis are so understandable as entities. I'm not a computer programmer, so please excuse this next reference, which could very well be completely off. I'm thinking it's a lot like object-oriented computer programming. There are certain objects that are convenient for humans to use to explain parts of the program that one is writing. The objects themselves, however, are only what they seem at one particular level. That is, the level that you want to use to write this program easily. On that level, you can drag them around and make them do something useful for you. So what is the usefulness of the metaphors of psychoanalysis, such as a false self? Well, recognition of certain metaphors, especially religious and psychological metaphors, creates a kind of aha experience. There are other metaphors in psychology besides those used in psychoanalysis and analytical psychology. And these metaphors are somehow psychically loaded, and that makes them appealing. For example, long ago in my early 20s, before I'd read that much about psychology, I was experiencing great psychological stress and depression. One time on the trolley, I was going to work, and I happened to look down at what someone was reading, and it was Arthur Janoff's Primal Scream. At that moment in time, at the age and stage I was at, whatever I read there caused a massive aha experience for me. And I began to read all about types of catharsis psychology, and I went to a social worker who practiced a related type of therapy, which was commonly known as bodywork. Bodywork, or primal scream, or catharsis, or whatever you want to call it. This was essentially a metaphor for change, which suggested that if you get down to your basic emotion and thoughts, you will have a sort of temper tantrum or scream or whatever, and you will have a cathartic experience that will change your life. Well, in psychoanalysis, the basic metaphor for change is that by understanding your childhood conflicts according to the tenets of psychoanalysis, you will have an aha experience that will very, very gradually, over a long period of time, sort of inexplicably make your life more understandable, maybe a little bit better. But overall, especially if you are older, there's an implication that you may not change very much and are stuck with your behavioral patterns, for the most part, for life. Now, in analytic psychology, commonly referred to as Jungian psychology, there is an added open door to change, that being the creativity of the unconscious. So in the Jungian line of thinking, there's a possibility of more change if one is to actively play with the objects of consciousness and unconsciousness and make them more visible in one's mind, and then modify them in ways through creative activity. You would then have your aha experience and potentially generate more positive change than was available with the stricter metaphors of psychoanalysis. Now, Interesting and appealing as these depth psychology type of metaphors are, they do not really provide that much improvement in one's condition, except an inner sensation of understanding the roots of one's issues, and possibly a small amount of change if one identifies anything that is easy and obvious enough for the individual to change. One problem lies with the repeating of the same set of ideas over and over according to a particular set of metaphors. How long can you interpret experience through one set of metaphors before it becomes stale? I was very fond of identifying my ego, self, shadow, anima, animus et al. For many years. But at some point, this is just like a stale religion. One needs to cultivate new ideas and metaphors, even if they are not as easy or pleasant to grasp and utilize as things like psychoanalysis, analytic psychology, or catharsis. If you have a personality disorder or other mental illness, you probably know that you get some benefit out of feeling like you have an understanding of your problem. But understanding the problem is only a small part. For those of us who want to change and improve our behavior according to our own particular inner wisdom or whatever, there's hard work involved. For example, in so-called narcissistic rage, do you really want to enact this rage, or do you want to change your behavior? How different is this rage, say, from the Asperger's meltdown experience? It could be argued that behaviorally and even emotionally, it is the same thing. The person is just attributing different ideas, different structures to the behavior. If this is you having an issue that you've defined as rage or angry behavior, what set of metaphors will help you change it most? Maybe you don't need metaphors anymore, just action. So those are my preliminary thoughts. Thank you for listening, and I would appreciate any comments.